All right. Peace and blessings, everybody. It's Friday night, June the 7th, the year 2019, and we have a very special guest on the line. For many people that have been following this case of David Hinkson, I refer to David as America's most provably innocent political prisoner. David is a very special man with very special talents. And we have on the line his friend, his good friend, Dennis Chan Lai. And Dennis is going to help us understand David's story more, as well as tell us, I believe Dennis is going to tell us what David needs as far as help from us so that we can try to get David out of that prison. He's been in prison over 15 years as an innocent man. He's been in prison because of the lying testimony of Elven Joe Swisher. And Elven Joe Swisher is a known perjured liar. We have a letter from Elven's own daughter saying he molested her, so he's a child molester, and he's been nationally shamed on Fox News as a valor thief. He went around and saying he had a Purple Heart and wore a Purple Heart pendant, but none of that was true. He forged his own DD-214 military records. And so, Dennis, welcome to the program tonight. I want to thank you for being a friend to David Hinkson and supporting him while he's been in prison. And welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Well, how did you get to know David, and what do you think about what's happened to David, and how can people help David? What would you like us to know about David? I think you actually spent time with him. I've never met him face to face other than talking to him on the phone, but you've actually spent time with him. How would you describe David as a man, and how would you describe David, as far as his integrity and character?
Well, he's listed in the case records as listed as a genius.
Yes, I believe that too. Amen. Yeah, I believe that too.
And geniuses, they're creative people, and they think all kinds of creative. Well, I guess it's like the Big Bang Theory. Their minds are creating things always, and that's David. He's always got something that he's thinking and making things. Like energy, better energy machines that help the world and stop global warming to make the air better, and make electricity, just like Elon Musk is doing with the magnetic loop transportation and his new batteries, electrical batteries. Well, David has inventions similar to that to save gas and save pollution, recycle polluted water, recycle waste. Like in the news today, the stock market, one company, they're talking about England. It's 3.5 billion tons of waste that they're transporting to another country, that they sell to another country. Well, David has inventions to process that waste into positive fertilizer.
I got to ask you, they wrote up a false incident report and said that David and I were conspiring to defraud people out of money, and it really broke my heart when they took my communications away from David and they moved him to the CMU in Terre Haute, Indiana. Have you ever known David to try to defraud anybody since you've known him?
No, he's oblivious to crime. He doesn't understand. He's not street smart. When criminals in prison, he was taking advantage. He's always been taking advantage of people. Take his commissary and con him. And he can't identify with con artists and gangsters.
I see.
He's concentrates. He's like the Big Bang Theory. He's all into, his mind is thinking of making things, access to the loophole and magnetic energy and cyberspace.
Well, he has some copper water too that he had a very successful business with as well, right?
Well, I keep hearing from there was 7 companies that offshoot from his company, and the 7 companies were helping people with cancer, hepatitis, AIDS, sickle cell anemia, swollen feet, all kinds of symptoms, and there are all kinds of testimony. Well, the original website had 10,000 customers, 1,100 doctors buying his products, and every month, almost every month, every 5 weeks, somebody is cured. The cancer is eliminated 90%, and 3 months later, 100%, and it's just every month.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, Dennis, I've interviewed people that had no reason and no incentive to lie to me or to tell me anything that was untrue. And I've had people tell me that their cancers were cured and they're completely better now because they took David's products. So I really believe David is a genius, and I believe he has inventions that will help all of humanity. I believe that too.
Well, the one person in 2002, this woman had 3 weeks terminal cancer, and she just gave us in November her testimonial that if it wasn't for the copper drinking water, she wouldn't be talking to us now after 16 years.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. How long have you known David? How long have you been his friend and known him?
Since 2012.
Very good. Very good. Well, I think you know that they've banned me from communicating with him, and so I hope that somehow changes in the future. I don't know that it will, but from your communications with David, is there what can people do to help? You mentioned something earlier about we need to identify Swisher's medical records for a certain period of time, because I believe David has said that the time period they claim he asked Elven Joe Swisher to murder, Elven Joe Swisher was in a coma in the hospital, and that can be proven if we can just get Swisher's medical records, and I think that's proven to be a very difficult task. So are you asking for people that have knowledge on how to issue FOIA requests or get medical records?
Yeah, because before we couldn't get the medical records because there's military law. You cannot get military records from the hospital unless the person gives you a power of attorney to get it. So, but he was sued by the VA for falsely claiming that he had military medals and all that, and he lost the case, and therefore supposedly the court records are now become public, so you don't have to get the VA power attorney to get from the military records, because the case made his records public. So the docket sheet, and you have to examine which medical records were presented in the case, because it's public record now. So we try to get those records, and anything that shows that he was indicted July 2002 for solicited murder to kill a prosecutor and torture his kids. But he was in a coma in the military hospital. So obviously it's impossible for him to to be solicited to murder when he's in a coma in a military hospital.
So just to make sure I'm clear, we're looking for Elven Joe Swisher's medical records for what time period? For
June 2002.
June of 2002. And if we were to get those and it was to show that Elven Joe Swisher was in a coma in the hospital, that would prove that it would be impossible for David Hinkson to be guilty of the crime of soliciting
murder.
Soliciting murder, right? Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And the medical records from, let's see, that was June, and then he had another heart attack. He was in the hospital for 3 more months, September, October, November, and then the prosecutor realized that they charged him for soliciting murder June 2002, and the prosecutor realized that, well, this is impossible. He was in a coma. So he changed the amended indictment to January 2003. Now, 2003, Switzer just came out of the hospital from three months heart attack, and he was attached to a wheelchair, a bladder bag. He was incapable of going up David Hinkson's stairs to his house. He would have to be carried up the stairs to David's house to solicit murder. And because David's 2-story house has 17 steps, and he can't drive.
Wow.
So either the wife has to drive him, and then he needed 2 persons to lift him up the stairs into David's house for him to be solicited to murder.
The whole story is just absolutely ridiculous that David Hinkson would ask this man who, had a bladder bag and barely was out of a coma, and actually in a coma in June of 2002, to solicit to commit murder. It's just incredibly crazy story. And also, I want the audience to know, and I want your reaction too, Dennis. But it's amazing to me that David Hinkson got 43-year prison sentence on the testimony of this known liar, child molester, and valor thief. And yet there's no other corroborating evidence. There's no other audio. There's no other, any recordings. There's nothing that was in addition other than just the simple testimony of this known liar named Elven Joe Swisher, who's been nationally shamed on Fox News for being a valor thief. And all the recordings that were introduced at trial, it's my understanding, came from David Hinkson, because he was recording because he thought people were trying to steal his business and set him up. So it's a really scary situation when we have one person able to lie on a witness stand and send another person to prison for 43 years that's absolutely innocent.
Well, Switzer, allegedly he was crying on the stand. He admitted lying at trial.
He admitted lying at trial. I had no idea.
He was crying.
Yeah.
He was crying.
Wow.
He was crying and admitted he was lying. But just that, this is similar to hostile takeover.
Yeah.
Everybody knows a hostile takeover. One company overwhelms the smaller company, ruins, sabotages it, and then takes a hostile takeover. Well, that's what they're doing to David. There's a hostile takeover to take over his business. He was helping people with illnesses and stuff, and somebody is this hostile takeover to David, trumped up all these phony charges and put them away. So that's just different. There's all different forms of hostile takeover, and this is one form.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I also heard that while David was in prison, they firebombed his company. And that's another example of they just want to do away with all of David's businesses. And they want to bury this man in prison so that he dies in prison. It's just a real, real tragedy. But I pray that, with good friends like you and help from the Lord above, that something will happen to, secure the freedom of David Hinkson so he can, regain his freedom, begin work with you and his other friends to do what he needs to do to, produce his inventions to help humanity. It's just a real tragedy.
Yeah, well, he's a victim of hostile technical.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dennis, I'm going to give your email address if that's okay, in case anybody has any ideas about how to get those medical records, because that would really help David. Is it okay if I give you your email address?
Sure.
Okay. For those that want to contact Dennis, and if you have any help, whether it be help from a counsel, legal perspective, or maybe just want to donate, maybe to help David Hinkson in any way possible, Dennis, your email address is Dennis, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's Dennis, Dennis, Chan, Chan, 999, dennischan999 at gmail.com.
Yeah, if we can get donations, we can hire investigators and to find this information. Once we get that information, that reopens his case.
Yeah.
Because because he can get they stacked the IRS phony charges, and it was illegal. So he would get resentenced, and he would be out in prison.
Was David, you mentioned that, he's not street smart, and he's not like, he doesn't pick up on like con artists, people that try to take advantage of him and things like that when he's in prison. Do you think that the guards like somehow mistreat David because he's a little different with his genius mindset? Do you think he gets picked on and mistreated not only by the prisoners but by the guards?
Well, one of the prisons, the guards were upset because he was helping some racial group, and they were against the racial group. So all the trouble he had was because that one group was prejudiced because he was helping. His products were helping people from all these illnesses, and this group didn't want their people to be helped.
I see. Yeah, I've heard that as well. And that's a real shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do encourage anyone listening to reach out to you and send you an email if they have any ideas or the ability to help David, because I just want David out of prison. I know you do too. Is there anything else you want the audience to know other than we need Swisher's medical records?
Well, if anyone wants to contact me, use the key code David Rudy, so I'll know that that's your email.
Got it. Okay. Anything else, Dennis? I want to make sure we got all the highlights, and I wish I could communicate with David directly, but they don't let me do that now that he's put in the CMU. I think they did that on purpose because he was getting a little bit popular. But I believe the Lord's not going to allow David to die in prison. I'm just going to pray that something special going to happen, and David's going to get out of there. I know you're not going to forget about him, and I'm certainly not going to forget about him. He's got a father and a mother that loves him too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we hope that we can get some help, and I guess like we can get the investigators and then pay an attorney, because the medical records will reopen the case. Once it's reopened, that means it can be heard. Once you get new evidence to show that there's a new evidence, starts the clock again.
Yeah.
So then the court will hear, because easily the legal stacking of there's 3 10-year sentences were stacked consecutively and should have been together, so that would release him from prison.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. You know, one of the things that I was going to mention, this 43-year prison sentence. Well, it's just incredibly long, right? It's just, and there's no victim, right? It's all conspiracy. It's conspiracy to solicit murder, and there's no victim. Nobody was actually murdered. And he actually won. Have you heard this, Dennis, that David won his case at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals when he had a 3-judge panel, but the prosecutor called for what's called a super en banc, and they brought in 9 judges, and then David lost on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals 5-4. If just one judge had voted, one more judge out of the 9 had voted in David's favor, David would be a free man today. And we know how bad the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, so for him to be that close after winning with the 3-judge panel, but then losing on the 9-judge panel, he got so close at one point to being a free man. And this thing really is teeter-tottering right in the balance. So if we could get those medical records and reopen the case, it's very likely that, like you said, they'll start again, and they'll have to find in his favor.
Well, he had a top appeal attorney in the Ninth Circuit, and the chief judge of the Ninth Circuit said that if the attorney argued this other issue, David would have won.
Wow.
This is right in the court's decision.
Wow.
So they're just people against him.
Yeah. People just don't like David, and I really feel like not only for his case as a man, right, that he needs to be free, because I believe he's gone through incredible suffering as an individual man, but I believe all of humanity is paying a price, because I believe he does have those inventions that could change humanity. But I wish more and more people would wake up about the case of David Hinkson. I wish they would care, and I pray that anybody listening reaches out to you. Dennis, I really thank you again for your time tonight.
He's like David is like Tesla. He has the power to go AC, and nobody listened to him for 30 years, and because Edison kept fighting him for 30 years, and then he goes to GE, and GE fights him and steals his ideas. So, he's a genius that's got things that have helped humanity, but he gets tied up with the wrong people.
Yeah, he's got enemies that are fighting him every step of the way, and they want people to forget about him, but we're going to try our best not to make that happen. But okay. Thank you, Dennis, for your time tonight. I do pray people reach out to you at dennischan999 at gmail.com, and I'll stay in touch, Dennis, and I hope you stay in touch with me. And thank you for your support of our friend David Hinkson.
Make sure they use the code David Rudy.
Okay.
So I know it's from you.
Okay. Anybody that sends a message to Dennis, put David Rudy in the subject line so he knows it comes from this program.
Yeah.
Okay. God bless you, Dennis. Thank you for your time, sir.
God bless you too.
Okay.
God bless you too.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.